Well, okay, we're back here. We're going to look at some more uh, things with our amortization table. You've been provided with a questionnaire that asks the following questions here. Okay, have you, with a certain amount of a loan, ask you things about how much interest you've paid over the in each of the following years, because that is the interest you can declare on your taxes. Okay, it's going to ask you about equity. We have to talk about that. It's going to pose some questions about, selling the property, assuming that you had a increase in the purchase price, or selling the property, assuming you had a decrease in the purchase price. Okay. And then we're going to do some further analysis with that. So let's get back to this. Let's look at this interest payment in for each of these years. I'm not going to do every one of them. You can easily do it. I'm just going to be here to show you how. So we're back to this spreadsheet. I put a couple of things in here. I'll explain those in a minute. But if we wanted to, you can see here is the cumulative interest paid. So the cumulative interest is, of course, exactly what it says. So in the first year, at the end of the 12th payment, you've paid $16,625 in interest. Now that's good, because that you can declare on your taxes as losses. Okay, seems like a lot, but it would actually, if you were, say, making 100,000, then now it's like making 84,000, because you can take this much off of your taxes, along with other things. So that's roughly how it figures in there. Okay. Now, if we wanted to find the total interest payment in the third year, then you come down here at the 36 months. That's not how much interest you've paid in the third year. That's how much interest you've paid in in 3 years. So if we wanted to just find the interest paid in the third year, what we could do is sum up this interest payment. Here's year 20, here's month 24. So if we sum up the interest payment from 25 down through our um, our third year, okay, um, down through 36, then that would sum up how much interest you've paid in that year. So let's do that summary. So over here, we're going to put in a little summary formula, which is going to say is equal to the sum of the quantities in the third year. So it begins here. Okay, count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, of course, which takes you down to the 36 month. That is your summary, $16,000 in interest in the third year. Okay, and so you can find out all your interest in any of those years in that sense. Okay, now here we have what's equity. Okay, now we'll put this in. I'm going to actually just delete all this and show you how we're going to put it back in, just so you have a sense of it. Okay, so we're going to come in here. This has been blocked out, so we're going to come over here. That's I-13. Okay, and we're just going to put in what we call equity. And equity is roughly the amount of the property that you own. Okay, the amount of the property that you own. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but for our purposes, that's what we're going to say. So what of the property do you own at the start? Well, you own 5%, because you put 5% down. So we own $21,000 worth of that $425,000 home. So we want to know how that changes. Obviously, as you proceed through the life of the loan, you're going to own more and more of it. So how is that determined? Well, okay, so here's what we're going to do. It's that 21,000 is actually the purchase price less what the ending balance is at this point right here. Okay, so we're going to keep that in there. Now, okay, so a little trick about building the spreadsheets. Here we're going to put in a formula. It's going to be equals. It's going to be this price. Okay. Now watch what happens if I just put that in there and drag that down. Okay. What's going to happen is, okay, that's going to change every time, and you see what it's doing. See, in here it's giving me the E4 value. but when I pulled it down, it's giving me the E5 value. So I want to keep that as a fixed value. So I do that with a special notation with dollar signs. So here we go. We're going to put in a formula equals, okay, it's this cell, but again up here is where the formulas are going to occur. We're going to put dollar sign in front of E, dollar sign in front of 4. So that's going to keep that as a fixed quantity, okay? So it's going to be equal that amount less this. Now that one, we want to, okay, we want to keep that as a ever changing because that's what it is. It's changing, okay? So so let's go here again. For some reason this didn't take, so because I didn't finish my formula up here. So it's equal that amount minus this cell reference, okay? Then it's equal. So there's my 21,000, okay? Now, okay, that should be my 5%. Of course, that's going to drag down. We're going to drag that all the way down. Okay, and as you can see, it's increasing all the way along here. Okay, now we want a percentage, so we're going to say 100 times this quantity divided by the purchase price up here. So it's going to be equals 100 times, okay, um, this value divided by uh, this value up here, and then of course we're going to put the dollar signs in front of that, so that stays as a fixed quantity right there. Dollar signs in. Okay, here we go. Enter, enter. Okay, there's our 5%, and of course that's going to increase slightly every month, and we want to drag that down through the life of the loan. So you can see here down to 15th payment we own it's 29,954 dollars worth of the property, or roughly 7%. Okay, so here we go. We just drag that down through the life of the loan. Okay, and and you're going to see that obviously you're going to own more and more of the house as time passes. One of the questions was, at what point do you own 20% of the house? So, okay, well, up here, right around right in this neighborhood right here, which is at the 95th, 96th payment, so like 8 years into the loan, you own 20% of the house. Okay, so that's roughly what equity is about. Now, let's take a look at some of the questions here and see how we proceed to answer those. So we showed you how you can find the interest paid in each of those years. Okay, we talked about your equity, and you can just look off your table for that. Okay, now we're looking at this. After 5 years, you decide to sell your property. During that time period, your property has increased in value by 20%. Assuming you can sell it at this inflated rate, how much do you stand to make at this time of the sale? Well, okay, so 5 years, we're increasing by 20%. Okay, so let's go back to our amortization. All right, so we're going to presume that we can make some money on this. So we're increasing our value by 5%. So it's going to be, as you can see, what, 400 and so 40 446,000. So we'll put that figure up here in our calculator, so we have that to work with. So we're increasing our amount. So we got the 425, and we're increasing that by at 20% rather. Oh yeah, times 20%. So it's times 1.2. So we're going to, our property value is going to be worth 510,000. So assuming that to be the case, 510,000 after 5 years, here's our 60 months. Okay, so we're at 60 months. Okay, we presumably owe still 366,000 on $59. So assuming you can sell it at 510, okay, well, of course you're not going to net that profit, but 510 minus that 366, okay, would be that potential profit. So you've got that quantity less this, you know, what, 366,059, right? 366, okay, 59. So you potentially could make 143,000. Of course, that's barring any other kind of expenses. That's at best what you might hope to earn. Now, the flip side of that is assuming that you've had a loss in property value, which is what's addressed here. So in the second case, we're assuming that you had a 15% drop in the property value after 3 years. So we're going to address that and see if you are, well, you're probably going to take a loss. So let's see what that is going to actually look like. Okay, so assuming that we're taking a loss now on our $425,000 property. I didn't get that in 425, right? Okay, times, now we're assuming that it's going to be worth only 85% of that. Okay, so is now 361,000, 361,250, 361,250. Let's look at our um, our table here. Okay, and after 3 years, that's a 36 payment. Okay, we have our, well, we're going to take a loss here. See, look at this. Okay, here's our calculator showing us the property value after, with a, assuming it's worth 15% less, is 361,000, but you owe 382,000. Okay, so you have to pay that off. You have to pay that off. You're taking a $21,000 loss. And actually, you're taking more than a $21,000 loss because you also have the 21,000 that you put down at the at the onset of the loan. So you're basically suffering a $42,000 loss by selling the property. You can't, you owe more on the property than what the property is deemed to be worth. That's what is called a foreclosure, my friends. Okay, you owe more than the property is worth. Okay, and that is what you call a foreclosure. You're really, it's a sad state of affairs. Hopefully no one ever gets to that. So that's some things that you have in looking at a amortization table. Okay, so have fun with that, and we'll come back and we'll look at some more things